to Fox Business Network's Charles Payne and Charlie Gasparino here. Also, Patrice Lee-Onwuck with the Independent Women's Forum. So, Charles Payne, to you, timing is everything. No matter what period you're looking at, he missed a couple of thousand points in a Dow rally. I'm sure he more than made up for that in other ventures and pursuits. But should it matter? Does it matter to you?
No, it does not matter to me. And I think the question from Matt Lauer was completely off base. There's so many other things going on here. The stock market right now is really reflecting an animal spirits, a reawakening in America that's going to benefit Americans, and I think they feel it, they know it, and the stock market reflects that. Whether Donald Trump is long or short, listen, we saw already where he has not been intimidated to go after companies specifically, including Boeing, which some people wondered, hey, was he in it, was he out of it? It doesn't matter. I think it's a non-event. I think it's more critical for the American public to understand what the message from the market is right now, and particularly with respect to the new president coming into office. There's a serious animal spirit awakening going on, Neil, and whether Trump is involved via the stock market or any other way, he is certainly the one stirring the pot.
He was certainly igniting a lot of this buying activity, Charlie Gasparino, which brings me to another issue. He obviously wanted out of stocks as his campaign was chugging along, maybe to address the appearance of impropriety here or conflict of interest, whether that was the case or not. He does not seem to apply that to his businesses, but even there, he is willing to sever those ties and leave the business in the hands of his kids. He's going to be doing that next week. What do you think?
You know, I agree with Charles on this. This is a tempest in a teapot. I mean, so what? The guy believes in corporate America, and he holds. Listen, if he still held the stock, I wouldn't care. Let's be real clear here. Donald Trump has announced macroeconomic policies. They don't affect specific stocks. His policies don't. They affect industries and the U.S. economy. He's lowering taxes. He's getting rid of regulations. That's generally good for banks, and that's generally good for startup companies. That's why the Russell 2000 is up. That's the startup company part.
Absolutely.
And the banks are up. And he's getting rid of regulations. My one quibble, and it's actually more than a quibble, my criticism of him is when he singles out companies that don't agree with him. I think that's a different question. That's where Matt Lauer should have focused on, not whether Donald Trump is holding stocks and benefiting.
You're talking about specifically Boeing, right. and there have been others as well. But Patrice, one of the things that's very, very clear is that Donald Trump is going to be president of the United States. This interview with Matt Lauer was triggered, of course, by the news that he was also named Time Magazine's Person of the Year. Not exactly shocking there. But does it matter to you whether he's in or out of stocks, in or out of this market, from a market that's benefiting from his very election?
I mean, I don't think it matters that much to me, and I don't think it matters to a lot of Americans. I mean, Americans care about what he can do for the economy. Politico and Morning Consult, they polled Americans, and 6 out of 10 Americans have a more favorable view of Donald Trump, given what he's been doing when it comes to private companies, trying to protect American jobs. Matt Lauer has sour grapes, and it's time for folks like him and others to move on. Americans want to come together and move forward to ensure that we all have more prosperity and opportunity.
You know, looking at that, Charles Payne, because he has such a vast empire, there's never been anyone as rich as him. Even inflation-adjusted terms, George Washington, I'm told, might come close. I don't know. I haven't crunched the numbers. But that this is going to be heavily scrutinized. Should it?
I think I don't know who's going to do the scrutinizing here. You know, I think everyone is in mostly agreement. This week, this is what I'm seeing, Neil. Investors Business Daily, economic sentiment at a 10-year high. Orders for new Class A commercial trucks for the first half of next year, for the first time in months, have soared year over year. We are seeing people on the Main Street America who are excited about what Donald Trump is bringing to the table, and their excitement alone is going to help big time for him to be successful here. So there's somebody out there who can watch whether or not his hotels in Asia benefit from Asian policy. I can tell you right now, I don't see any facts or even any suggestion that Donald Trump is putting his business interests ahead of
Well,
the
wait a
the
second,
country.
Charles. He said in that New York Times interview he could run his business out of the White House.
Right,
And
but I'm saying I don't see where his policies.
Okay,
I don't see where I see where his policies may actually hurt his business.
Okay, but here's
rather than help him.
he had his. Listen, I'm not saying he's doing anything wrong, and this is and listen, if you're a capitalist, you'd much rather have him than the crony capitalism of the Clintons. But remember, he sat in a room with the Japanese Prime Minister and his daughter, who's now running the Trump the Trump
And you know what,
enterprise.
Charlie? He's going to make them pay for their own military.
But my point is this. Conflicts of interest do matter. He should take precautions to not have them.
All right, I apologize for interrupting you there, but I have to. News dictates and moves on. I also wanted to stop any personal disagreements. But guys, thank you very, very much. Patrice